When someone hurts you, the world tells you to react, to fight back, defend your pride, and protect your ego like it's made of glass. But I tell you this, don't give them what they expect. They want your reaction. They want to pull you into their chaos so they can feel in control. The moment you shout, argue, or strike back, you've already given them power. Because when you lose your inner stillness, they win. But when you remain calm, composed, and silent, you flip the game. Your stillness becomes a mirror they can't escape. Your silence becomes the storm they cannot handle. Don't react. Do this instead. And watch how the ones who tried to break you begin to break themselves. Here are 7 powerful lessons to master this art. Not to defeat others, but to fully master your own mind. 1. Master the pause before the storm. In every fight I've ever been part of, whether it was inside the ring or in the middle of life's chaos, I learned something that most people miss. Victory doesn't always go to the one who strikes first. It goes to the one who can remain still for just a moment longer, the one who watches, the one who reads the situation, the one who waits for the perfect opening and then moves with precision. This isn't just a fighting technique, it's a way of life. When someone disrespects you, lies to you, or tries to provoke you, your natural instinct is to defend yourself right away. You feel your heart beating faster, your fists clenching, your voice rising. That's your survival brain trying to protect you, but in that exact moment, if you act without thinking, you give away your power. You let your emotions take the lead, and when your emotions lead, your wisdom disappears. The real strength comes not from how fast you react, but from how deeply you can pause. That pause is not weakness. It's not fear. It is a sacred moment where your power builds. You feel the fire rise inside you, but instead of letting it explode out through anger or harsh words, you take a breath. You hold it. You contain the storm. And by doing that, you take control of the entire situation. Because in that pause, something powerful happens. You step outside your emotions and start seeing clearly. You begin to notice things you would have missed if you were angry. You can see their body language. You feel their energy. You sense what they want from you. You detect their fear, their insecurity, their attempt to get a reaction out of you. And once you see that clearly, you hold all the cards. And when you pause, you're not frozen. You're calculating. You're choosing to respond, not react. That's what separates a warrior from a wild man. A wild man acts without thinking. A warrior waits, studies, and then acts with purpose. The pause gives you space to ask yourself, is this worth my peace? Is this worth my time? What's the outcome I want here? And when you ask those questions, your anger starts to dissolve. Your clarity returns. And instead of reacting in a way that you'll regret, you respond in a way that puts you back in command. The man who can pause in the middle of chaos is the one who truly owns the moment. And when you own the moment, no one can use it against you. The battlefield may be loud, emotional, and unpredictable. But if you stand still while everyone else is swinging blindly, you become the calm in the center of the storm. And that kind of presence makes others tremble, not because you shouted, but because you didn't need to. 2. Let their energy destroy them, not you. When someone attacks you with anger, whether it's with words, betrayal, jealousy, or disrespect, it's easy to believe that you must fight back right away. You feel wronged, you feel hurt, you want to protect your dignity. But the truth is, people who act with cruelty or rage are already at war with themselves. Their mind is not calm, their emotions are not steady. They are carrying a fire inside them, and when they come at you, they are trying to pass that fire on. They want to make you burn too. But here's the truth. If you take their fire and throw it back, you don't defeat them. You become just like them. And the real fight is not outside of you. It's inside. The moment you take their anger into your heart, you let their energy control you. You lose your balance. You let their chaos become yours. What I've learned is this. If you let someone's toxic energy enter your system, you start to rot from the inside out. You carry their poison long after they've gone. And most of the time, they don't even care. They've moved on. But you're still sitting there replaying the moment. Angry, bitter, planning your revenge. That's not power, that's slavery. So the highest form of defense is not to absorb their energy. It's to let it bounce off of you. Let it return to them, untouched. Let them deal with their own fire. It's like standing in front of a man swinging wildly in the air. You don't need to fight him. You just need to step aside. Let him tire himself out. Let him stumble. Let him swing so hard that he ends up hurting himself. That's what happens when you don't react. You become a mirror. You reflect their energy back to them. They start to realize they're not fighting you. They're fighting their own reflection, their own weakness, their own unhealed wounds. And the more they rage, the more they burn themselves out. You don't win by shouting louder. You win by not needing to shout at all. You don't win by striking back. You win by standing still while they unravel in front of you. Because when your heart is calm, your mind is focused, and your emotions are clean, you become unshakable. You don't break under pressure. You become the pressure. You don't match their chaos. You become their lesson. And in time, the very people who try to destroy your peace will sit alone in the silence they once feared, wondering how you managed to stay untouchable. So remember this. You're not here to carry other people's anger. You're not here to fix their wounds or match their energy. Let them shout. Let them spit poison. Let them swing. But you, stand tall, breathe deep, and let their energy destroy them, not you. 3. Use your silence as a mirror that breaks them. There is something most people do not understand about silence. They mistake it for weakness. They think if you don't speak, if you don't react, if you don't argue back, you are afraid, unsure, or broken. But silence is not the absence of power. It is the fullness of it. It is the restraint of a man who knows he doesn't need to prove anything. It is the shield of a mind that no longer bows to chaos. When you stay silent in the face of disrespect, when you remain composed as someone tries to shake you, you become a mirror, and that mirror becomes their undoing. Most people are not ready to see themselves. That's why they hide behind insults, noise, drama, and blame. They don't want to face their own guilt, their own insecurity, their own unresolved pain. So what do? They look for a target. They throw their pain at others in the form of cruelty, manipulation, and disrespect. But when you don't catch what they throw, when you don't engage with their poison, it falls right back into their own hands. And in the stillness of your silence, they are forced to see what they tried to avoid. You don't have to attack them. You don't have to correct them. You don't even have to speak. Just be still and let the truth do what the truth always does. It reveals. They will start to question themselves. They will replay their own words in their mind, wondering if they went too far. They will search your eyes for a reaction and find none. They will try to understand what you're thinking, and when they can't, their mind will begin to turn against itself. Silence becomes the seed of doubt that grows into a storm inside them. They begin to unravel, not because you fought them, but because you didn't give them the reaction they were counting on. The mind of a guilty person cannot rest in silence. It begins to panic. It begins to break. And here's the beauty of it. While they are collapsing under the weight of their own behavior, you are standing in peace. You are not disturbed. You are not shaken. You are not lowered to their level. Because silence does not mean nothing is happening. It means something powerful is happening inside you and inside them. You are building strength while they are burning fuel. You are rising while they are sinking. Silence is the weapon that strikes without being seen. It is the discipline of a warrior who chooses self-control over emotional chaos. It is the test most people fail, and the tool that only the wise know how to use. You don't need to scream to be heard. You don't need to explain to be understood. Sometimes your stillness is the loudest message you'll ever send. So the next time someone tries to get a reaction from you, don't give them the satisfaction. Say nothing. Look at them with calm, unwavering eyes. Let your silence show them who they really are. Let it be the mirror they never expected and cannot escape. 4. Control the space, not the noise. When people try to dominate a situation, they usually raise their voice. They try to fill the air with sound, shouting, accusing, talking over you, because they believe that the louder they are, the more power they hold. But that's not power, that's desperation. Real power is quiet. Real power doesn't need noise, it needs space. And the one who controls the space, emotionally, mentally, physically, is always in charge of the outcome. You see, when a person insults you, mocks you, or pushes you to react, they are trying to pull you into their emotional space, a space of confusion, of chaos, of heat. And if you step into that space without awareness, you start playing by their rules. They control the tempo, they control the energy. You're no longer grounded, you're drifting in their storm. That's how most people lose. They leave their center. They trade calm for combat. They start reacting like a cornered animal instead of a grounded warrior. But the man who remains centered, the man who guards his space and refuses to be pulled into nonsense, he becomes immovable. He becomes the anchor. Imagine you're standing in a room and someone enters full of rage. They shout, they pace, they throw words like weapons. The average person would meet that energy with more energy, shouting back, defending themselves, clashing force with force. But you don't. You remain still. You stay grounded. You control your breathing. You let their storm pass around you like wind against stone. In that moment, you are not the victim of their energy. You are the container of your own. That kind of presence is rare, and because it's rare, it's powerful. This principle isn't just about physical confrontations. It's about everyday life. In conversations, in relationships, in meetings, in conflicts, your power is in your ability to manage the space, not dominate the airwaves. When people around you start losing control, your job is not to get louder. Your job is to get deeper, deeper into stillness, deeper into observation, deeper into yourself. Your grounded energy forces others to either rise to your level or fall apart trying. That's why martial arts is not just about kicks and punches. It's about learning how to command your environment with presence. You walk into a room and your calm speaks louder than a scream. You speak with fewer words, but they land harder. You move less, but your stillness is more intimidating than their rage. You're not reacting to every move. They're adjusting to your stillness. That's the art. That's the secret. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You don't need to shout. You don't need to win the argument. You only need to remain rooted. Let others throw their energy into the air like leaves in a storm, while you remain like the tree whose roots dig deeper with every gust of wind. In time, people will come to recognize that when chaos enters the room, you don't become part of it. You control it by refusing to be moved. That is what it means to control the space, not by force, not by fear, but by the quiet authority of a man who has mastered his own energy. 5. Let the unseen break them. Don't explain yourself. One of the most misunderstood forms of strength is the ability to remain silent when your name is being dragged, when your character is being misjudged, or when someone is working behind closed doors to damage what you've built. The instinct to defend yourself is strong. You want to step forward and say, "That's not true," or "Let me explain." But sometimes the most powerful move is to say nothing at all. Because when you understand your own value, when you are firmly rooted in who you are, you don't chase people's understanding. You don't run after false narratives. You let the truth speak silently on your behalf. And in time, it always does. The people who aim to hurt you often expect a show. They want a reaction. They want to know that they've gotten under your skin. That's the real currency they're after. Not justice, not truth, but control. When you stay quiet, you deny them that currency. You remove the fuel that feeds their need to win. But more than that, you introduce a kind of tension that rattles them. They don't know what you're thinking. They don't know what you'll do next. And that unknown begins to weigh on their mind like a shadow that keeps following them wherever they go. Let them wonder. Let them sit in the silence you left behind. Let their own words echo back to them when there's no argument to drown it out. The most confusing thing to a person who expected drama is the presence of dignity. The most unsettling thing to someone who thrives on control is realizing you're no longer playing their game. And when they start creating stories in their head, when they imagine all the ways you might be responding or not responding, they begin to unravel. Not because of anything you said, but because of everything you didn't say. This is what I call the art of strategic invisibility. You don't have to show every move. You don't have to make every truth public. You don't have to prove yourself in every room you're not even in. In fact, the more you explain, the more energy you give to people who don't deserve access to you. Silence in this way becomes sacred. It protects your peace. It creates mystery. And mystery, when handled with discipline, becomes power. Now, some will say silence is weakness, that by not responding, you allow others to write the story. But they're wrong. Because the story people write about you doesn't define who you are. Their opinion is not your reality. And when the dust settles, when all the noise fades, the truth always remains. But only those who are patient, those who are unshaken, those who are secure in themselves, get to see that truth rise without effort. You see, your life is not a courtroom, and you're not on trial every time someone doesn't understand you. The people who truly matter, who know your heart, who walk with integrity, they see you clearly. And the people who don't want to see you clearly will twist your words no matter what you say. So why waste your breath? Let the lies collapse on their own. Let the gossip grow tired of its own echo. Let those who tried to break you wonder why you didn't fall. That wondering is more powerful than any argument. It keeps them up at night, asking themselves, did I go too far? Why isn't he reacting? What is he planning? That mental chaos they now live with, that is the weight of their own guilt, and you didn't have to lift a single finger to put it there. This is not revenge. This is maturity, this is clarity, this is choosing elevation over reaction, peace over pride, discipline over drama. And in doing so, you become the person they cannot touch, not because you fought harder, but because you outgrew the battlefield entirely. 6. Train yourself to respond, not react. One of the greatest mistakes a person can make in life is believing that every emotion they feel deserves a reaction. Most people live like this. They get hurt, they lash out. Someone disrespects them, they explode. Someone provokes them, they argue without thinking. Their lives are a constant dance of emotional reaction, impulse, regret, impulse, regret. And they wonder why they feel drained, lost, and easily manipulated. The truth is, when you react to everything, you give away pieces of your power one by one until there's nothing left but exhaustion and confusion. But when you respond, carefully, deliberately, you stop playing their game. You take your power back. You must understand that your emotions are not meant to lead you. They are signals, yes, but they are not commands. Anger is a signal, fear is a signal, pain is a signal, but you are the master of how to move with that signal. You can feel anger without becoming it. You can feel fear without letting it paralyze you. That's the difference between a person who reacts and a person who responds. One is controlled by the moment, the other controls the moment itself. Think about it like this. When someone says something disrespectful to you, your ego feels heat. Your heart starts racing. Your pride gets loud. And before your mind can even catch up, your mouth responds. You shoot back a comment. You raise your voice. Maybe you say something clever. Maybe you land a blow. But deep down, you feel it. That loss of control, that shaky energy, that regret, even if no one sees it. And later, you replay the whole situation in your mind and think, I wish I'd handled it differently. That feeling right there? That's the cost of living by reaction. Now imagine something else. Imagine that same moment. Someone disrespects you. Your heart still feels it because you're human. But this time, instead of letting your tongue fire back, you breathe. You observe. You watch not just them, but yourself. You feel the emotion rise, but you don't act on it. You hold it. You ask yourself, what is the right move here? What outcome do I really want? And from that space of inner silence, you choose your response, if any at all. Maybe you walk away. Maybe you speak, but with calm precision. Maybe you say nothing and let your energy speak for itself. Whatever you do, it comes from clarity, not chaos. That is power. That is mastery. That is the difference between a man who is ruled by his environment and a man who rules himself. But this kind of self-control doesn't happen by accident. It must be trained like a muscle. Every time you pause instead of reacting, that muscle gets stronger. Every time you choose silence over shouting or stillness over striking, you are carving a new path in your brain, a path of peace, discipline, and presence. At first, it feels hard. Your old habits will fight back. Your ego will scream. But over time, that screaming gets quieter. You begin to feel proud of your restraint. You begin to find joy in your control. And slowly, your emotions become something you ride, not something that rides you. People will try to test this calm. They will poke at it, waiting for a slip. They'll call you names, doubt your silence, question your character. They want to see if the old version of you still lives behind your eyes. But your job is not to convince them. Your job is to remain unmoved. Let your life speak louder than your reactions. Let your results speak louder than your rage. That is what mastery looks like. And this training, this control over your reactions, isn't just for other people. It's for your own peace. Because every time you react emotionally, it's like drinking poison and expecting it to hurt someone else. You carry that weight long after the moment has passed. But when you learn to pause, to observe, to choose your next step with intention, you begin to walk through life lighter, freer, and more powerful than you've ever been. So ask yourself this. Do you want to be a puppet, your strings pulled by everyone who presses your buttons? Or do you want to be a master, calm, still, unshaken, choosing every movement with purpose? You were not born to be ruled by emotion. You were born to train it, to tame it, to transform it into power. And the one who trains himself to respond instead of react becomes unstoppable. 7. Make peace your sharpest and most unpredictable weapon. There is a misconception that has ruined many lives. The belief that peace is weakness, that if you don't react with fury, if you don't fight back, if you don't raise your voice or throw your fists, then you are soft. But I tell you, nothing could be further from the truth. It is far easier to react in anger than it is to remain calm under pressure. It is far easier to explode than it is to hold your fire. It is far easier to let your emotions hijack your behavior than to stand tall while the world tries to shake you to your knees. So if you want to see who the strongest man in the room is, don't look for the one shouting. Look for the one who isn't moved, the one who doesn't flinch, the one who holds peace in a world that worships noise. Peace, when mastered, becomes a blade so sharp that most people don't even realize they've been cut by it until long after the moment has passed. When someone disrespects you and you respond with calm, controlled dignity, you don't just confuse them, you unnerve them. They expected fire. They prepared for war. But you gave them nothing, not because you couldn't, but because you chose not to. And that choice leaves them stunned. They begin to question their own power. They begin to wonder why they couldn't shake you. And slowly, without even knowing it, they begin to feel smaller. Not because you made them feel that way, but because your peace exposed how loud, how desperate, and how unstable their energy truly was. Peace doesn't mean walking away from every situation. It means entering every situation with so much inner clarity that no chaos outside of you can dictate your behavior. You don't lower yourself to meet someone's disrespect. You raise the frequency so high that they either rise to meet you or fall away entirely. That is the power of discipline. That is the power of self-control. That is the power of a man who has conquered the battlefield within. Most people think they are strong because they can fight. But I say, strength is proven when you don't need to. When you can fight and choose not to. When you can speak and choose silence. When you can destroy but choose to walk away with your integrity untouched. That is not weakness. That is precision. That is mastery. That is a man who cannot be manipulated. A man who cannot be broken. A man who knows exactly what game is being played and refuses to play it. Let me tell you this, people will test you, they will push you, they will try to drag you back into the patterns you've outgrown. They will insult your peace and call it passivity. They will try to bait your ego into battles that only benefit their pride. But every time you choose peace instead of war, silence instead of shouting, focus instead of fury, you are not running away. You are rising above. And the higher you rise, the harder it becomes for small people to reach you. They will try to provoke you because your peace disturbs them, because deep down they wish they had what you have. They wish they had the ability to remain composed when everything is falling apart. They wish they had the control to walk away from the things that insult their soul, and because they can't, they want to destroy it in you. But your job is not to prove yourself to them. Your job is to protect the sanctuary you've built inside, that space of calm, of clarity, of purpose. That is sacred. And sacred things must be guarded, not with swords, but with wisdom. Peace is your unpredictability. People know how to fight fire, but they don't know what to do with still water. They can't swim in it. They can't drown it. They can't burn it. They stand there confused, unable to pull you down, unable to match your stillness. And eventually they give up, not because you broke them, but because you refuse to let them break you. This is what it means to be untouchable. Not because you're the strongest in the room physically, but because your spirit cannot be invaded, your mind cannot be shaken, your emotions are not exposed for the world to play with. You walk with such inner stability that others either learn from you or fear you, and neither requires you to raise your voice. So the next time someone pushes your buttons, tries to provoke you, tries to draw you into a war you don't need to fight, remember this: your peace is your armor. Your peace is your power. Your peace is your message to the world that nothing and no one can pull you off your path. Be the man who walks through fire but never burns. Be the man whose silence speaks louder than words. Be the man who turns away from chaos, not because he's afraid, but because he's already won. That is the ultimate strike. That is what it means to master yourself. You were not born to be a slave to every emotion that passes through you. 8. Become the ghost they can't touch. Withdraw without warning. There is a moment, known only to those who have walked the path of deep self-discipline, when you realize that silence is not just a weapon. It is an escape, a clean escape. a silent exit from every room, every relationship, every argument, every war that was designed to drain you. And when you master that moment, when you withdraw without fanfare, without warnings, without explanation, you become something people can no longer predict, control, or destroy. You become untouchable. You become the ghost that haunts the space they once thought they had power in. People expect drama. They expect emotional exits. They expect shouting, closure, chaos. They expect you to stay long enough to hear their excuses or play their games one more time. They expect to see you break, to know they still have a piece of your mind, your energy, your soul. But when you rise in silence, when you vanish from their arena with no sound, no echo, no permission asked, you take back your freedom in full. And they are left with only the absence of you. And that absence becomes the loudest presence they've ever felt. You see, this level of withdrawal is not running away. It is not surrender. It is the highest form of control. It says, I see everything, I understand everything, and I choose nothing. I choose myself. Because there comes a point when responding is no longer necessary, when explaining your silence to people who made noise, their home is a waste of breath. And so you leave, not to hurt them, not to teach them, but to return to yourself. You leave without looking back because the version of you they had access to no longer exists. This is what I call the ghost mode of power, the moment you stop explaining your boundaries, the moment you stop giving people chances they've already wasted, the moment you stop fighting to be heard in rooms built to ignore you, and instead you turn inward, you collect your energy, you rebuild your silence, and you move forward, unseen, untouched, unbothered. You become the man who doesn't argue, who doesn't react, who doesn't announce every step. You just move. And that movement, done in absolute quiet, shakes the ground far more than shouting ever could. People who once had power over your emotions will scramble to understand. Where did he go? Why won't he speak? Why doesn't he care anymore? And in their desperation to pull you back into their story, they will expose all the manipulation, all the chaos, all the weakness they used to hide behind their noise, and you won't even be there to see it, because you're already gone. And that's what breaks them. Not your anger, not your revenge, but your absence. Your silence becomes a haunting. Not because you intended to haunt them, but because they never expected you to walk away with nothing left to prove. And here's the truth. Not everyone deserves a warning. Not everyone has earned the right to know when you're done. Some people don't deserve your words. Some situations don't deserve your reaction. And some chapters don't deserve a proper ending. The most powerful exit is the one where you no longer need to be seen, understood, or validated. You simply leave because your peace is worth more than their attention. But this level of detachment requires more than strength. It requires a kind of inner clarity that most people fear. Because when you start operating from peace, not pride, you no longer fight for ego. You no longer argue to win. You no longer chase to be loved. You realize that some connections were meant to be broken. Some people were meant to test your boundaries. And some battles were never yours to fight. And so you disappear, not to hide, but to heal. You go quiet, not because you've lost, but because you've outgrown the noise. You walk away, not out of fear, but out of deep, deliberate wisdom. The wisdom that says, I will no longer allow myself to be available to anything that makes me feel small. And from this place of deep detachment, you begin to build a life that no one can disturb, a mind that no one can invade, a soul that no one can corrupt. You become the ghost not because you're cold, but because you're free. Free from needing to be right, free from needing to be liked, free from trying to fix what was never yours to fix. You no longer show up to fight. You no longer enter rooms to prove. You no longer give pieces of yourself to people who only came to take. You walk alone, not in loneliness, but in elevation. You disappear, not into darkness, but into depth. And when you return, if you choose to return, you do so with a silence so deep that it speaks louder than any roar ever could. So if they try to hurt you, don't explain. If they try to confuse you, don't react. If they try to pull you into their chaos, don't step in. Withdraw. Quietly. Completely. And watch how your absence becomes the very storm they thought your presence would never survive. That is the final level of discipline. That is what it means to become untouchable. You were not built to dance on strings pulled by others. One insult makes you shout. One betrayal makes you crumble. One setback makes you doubt your entire path. That's not you. That's a version of you they trained. But the real you, the awakened you, the disciplined you, is something far greater. Your true power begins the moment you stop giving people permission to control your inner world, when you no longer hand your peace to anyone who presses your buttons, when you stop bleeding energy for those who don't deserve a single thought. Then you rise. So you don't need revenge, you don't need applause, you don't need the last word. All you need is mastery over yourself. Because when you master your emotions, your reactions, your presence, then no insult can touch you. No conflict can shake you. No betrayal can poison you. You become like water, calm, flowing, ungraspable. You become like stone, still, rooted, unbreakable. Let them say what they will, let them do what they must. And you don't move for noise, you move for purpose. So don't react, pause, observe, choose, and let your peace break them louder than your anger ever could. That is how you win. Not by striking first, not by shouting last, but by walking away with your soul intact, untouched, unshaken, undefeated.